What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast that is a proud partner of the Euroset Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. As always, I am your host, Numac, coming to you after Christmas. Hope you guys all had a wonderful holiday and a start to the Hanukkah season. Uh, Thank you to Andrew for filling in for me on the post game of the Saints beatdown, the 34 to nothing beatdown of the New Orleans Saints. Holy moly, was that a good one to watch. But joining me, as always, is my lovely co-host, Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Merry Chris Brooksmas to everybody listening.
Merry Chris Brooksmas. Did you have that one chambered and ready to fire as soon as you got here, or what was the deal with that?
No, it was you saying Merry Christmas, and I was like, Chris Brooks. And then that's how my brain works of just like firing, like it's like little pop. You know when you put a pop bag of popcorn in, it starts microwaving, and then when the seeds eventually you hear it like kind of like rattling, and then it's like pop 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 pop. That is my like pun meter of like Chris Brooksmas or I don't know. Um, can't really think of another one, but there probably is another one on the roster.
I'm surprised that's where you got. I wasn't sure where you were going with this. I have I have zero idea. To say that your brain works with puns like popcorn kernels in a bag, never ever would I have went there.
Really?
Really, really. I don't think that's how I would have equated how that works. Truly,
It's
truly a unique mind, Jordan.
thank you. A beautiful mind if you want to call me Russell Crowe.
Sure, you can call me fuzzy because my camera won't focus now. So
We got a little fuzzy Thurston at our Zoom right now. It's okay.
he had a bar in Green Bay.
Did he?
Yeah, it's called Fuzzies.
Aptly
If you could
named.
imagine, it's right on Mason Street, across from the Walmart and the Sam's. I once
Mm.
dropped my dad's credit card on the ground there, and he left. He goes, "Where's my credit card?" I was like, "I don't know. It's your credit card." But alas, that's all I gotta say about that. Let's give us some cheeses after the 34-0 beatdown of the New Orleans Saints. Six candidates this week. First up is Josh Jacobs, 13 carries, 69 rushing yards, and one rushing touchdown. Four catches on four targets and 30 receiving yards on 28 snaps. Would have had more had he not left early due to a believe shoulder injury or something like that, some sort of arm injury. I don't think it was legs, but I don't think he had a designation either. Let me check um, the report here. Doesn't have a designation this week, so alas, we shall not know. I think
Mm.
he also said that post game that Matt LaFleur said if they score on the first drive coming out of the half that he's getting benched the rest of the game. So not for obviously performance, but just to make sure he's healthy. Next
Yeah.
up is his backup, Emmanuel Wilson. 11 carries, 52 rushing yards, one rushing touchdown, and one catch on one target for four receiving yards for 20 snaps. Oh, I forgot to mention Josh Jacobs' PFF score was 90.4. Emmanuel Wilson's is 80.9. Both those players had absolutely physical games as Josh Jacobs put Teron Mathieu into the bleachers, and Emmanuel Wilson ran right through a man's face. So, love to see that. Zane Anderson, three tackles, two of which were solo, interception, and then 47 snaps as he was filling in for Javon Bullard and I believe Evan Williams. Uh, Edrin Cooper, 10 tackles, 8 of which were solo, and a tackle for a loss on 38 snaps. Rashawn Gary, 2 tackles, 6 pressures, a fumble recovery, 90.6 PFF grade. I keep forgetting PFF grades. Edrin Cooper's was 81.2, Zane Anderson's was 85.2. And then last up, Brenton Cox Jr., 2 tackles, a sack, and 2 QB hits on 5 pressures and 26 snaps. Good for an 88.7 PFF grade. Uh, Jordan, I talked pre-pod, and neither of us have locks, I don't think. So,
I have one for sure.
okay, I have none, so I'll let you lead with your lock.
Zane Anderson.
He was gonna be like one of the guys that I would have vied for. I just didn't know if he was gonna be a lock or not. So yeah, I'm down for Zane Anderson receiving his first cheese as a Green Bay Packer.
First cheese, we can argue whether, the quality of the opponent, given the fact that it was the first shutout in the NFL season. But yeah, like I thought he played really well, and I think even with knowing that this is his second straight week of starting, correct?
I
Or
think so.
at
I
least
I don't.
playing a prominent role.
Yeah,
Um, he's done really well, and that could be very interesting to follow, given that Evan Williams has been dogged by what
injuries.
injury? Yeah, injuries. I forget what the
A
specifics ones are.
quad.
Quad injuries. So yeah, just thought he played really well, and obviously came up with the big pick. Almost should have had two,
Should have
really.
had two. Yeah. So, all right, Zane Anderson gets our first one. I'm partial. Let me go back and check last week's at gspn.info where you can find all of the cheese boards as they're posted by yours truly, with the help of Jordan, obviously. I don't think we've given Brenton Cox Jr. one this year.
I'm going through it right now.
We
I
have
don't believe so
we
either.
have not. And so my opinion is that he's played pretty darn well in the last few weeks, honestly, since the trade deadline when they traded Preston.
Hmm.
I'd be down to give Brenton Cox Jr. one because he's been playing pretty darn good um, on limited snaps. Like I feel like he's had a sack pretty much every couple of weeks. Like I feel like he's playing pretty darn well.
I would agree. I think he's certainly in line for um getting a cheese. And I want to say, let me try to find my PFF window here. Um, how many steps did he have? Why am I already wrote
28.
this down. 20, yeah, 26.
26. Yeah.
And then I want to say this might have been his most snaps as a Packer. I'm trying to verify that as we speak because
Possibly.
even with him like being the super sub, it's not like he's been getting, yeah, 26 is the most he's had this year, and
Okay.
obviously that would qualify for his career because it's not like he was playing a lot last year.
Right. I'm trying
Yeah,
to.
let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Um, Brenton Cox Jr. is tied for fourth on the team with 4 sacks. It's Rashawn with 7. Um, Rashawn with 7. Kingsley Enigbar with 5. Devontae Wyatt with 5. Lucas Van Ness, Adrian Cooper, and Brenton Cox Jr. all have 4. So I'd be down to give him one. Also, I don't think on this list, but might have been worthy is Devontae Wyatt. He had a good game. He had a sack as well. Um, in this game, I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yes.
I think I'm trying to decide if we give it to three defensemen, which, like, honestly, it's hard because they scored 34 points, but they also held the Saints to 0 points. Like, both
Yeah,
sides of the ball did very well.
I would be more than up for that. I mean, shutting out the Saints is kind of indicative of, despite the offense being really good, it's like there's a lot of it to go around. But even with Josh Jacobs getting 100 yards from scrimmage, Emmanuel Wilson doing it really well. It's like I would say there was more standout defensive performances rather than offensive because it just kind of, in the aggregate, it all added up to, an easy win.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
Would you go Cooper or Rashawn Gary?
Um,
I feel like I have to mention that if Edrin Cooper were to win another cheese, this would make 4 on the season. I think that's not crazy.
I don't think it's crazy either. My my wonder is where does that put him? Let me go back to gspn.info. Put him puts him on the season in line with Xavier McKinney, one behind Josh Jacobs for the lead. I don't know. because like those two have been like the leaders of the team, and Edger Cooper has been that as of late, but not the entire season, you know. But he played well. Um, let me check PFF quick. How many pressures did Edger Cooper have in this game?
Let me go to the game.
That's where I'm going. Because if he had like a similar amount of pressures to um
He had none.
none, which like isn't the end all be all, but uh like Lucas Ness had 4 in this game, which again it's his job to do that. It's not Edgerrin Cooper's job to uh get home essentially.
Yeah.
Um, let's give it to Edge. I'm fine with that.
Giving him the edge.
Yeah, let's give it to Edge. He's playing out of his mind. Uh,
He's really good.
Joe Buck and Troy when we're going bonkers over him on the broadcast. So,
Damn right.
oh, I forgot to ask, how was the game, Jordan? Did you enjoy yourself?
I enjoyed it. It was a great experience. Third Monday Night Football game that I've been to.
Yeah,
Very fun, festive atmosphere. People were chanting, "Let the Bears still suck" when it was the fourth quarter.
that was
So
so
I think
funny.
people,
They showed that
I
on the
think people were
broadcast too.
getting bored. Obviously, the wave happened.
Matt
I
LaFleur was
was
pissed.
same as I. Just it was disrespectful. Just have some respect, people.
Yeah,
Come on.
it's like your team
It's not
is.
even about the offense. It's just like this is dumb.
Yeah,
It's
me
dumb.
and you are noted wave haters. So
Yeah.
not the
I'll
Milwaukee
ride the
wave, however.
wave. No, no, no. I'll ride the wave. Milwaukee wave included. But I'm not gonna do it. I'm in I'm here to watch a football game. I'm here to watch my favorite team, not to be like, oh, you know, I'll
Yeah,
do it by myself like I just did.
yeah.
But yeah.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. So, all right, Zane Anderson, Ezra Cooper, and Brenton Cox Jr. Congratulations on your cheeses this week. Um, on to this matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are 65, 58, and 3 when facing off against the Vikings. 4 straight seasons where the Packers and Vikings will play against each other in Week 17. Packers are 3-0 in such games. They are 3-2 when playing at US Bank Stadium during the Matt LaFleur era, and the Packers and Vikings have a combined 24 wins going into this Week 17 matchup, which is the most combined for a game between rivals. Again, shout out Packers dope sheet for that stat. The Vikings are 9-2 since last beating the Packers 31-29 in Week 4 at Lambeau, when they came out hot to I think a 28 nothing lead. No, 20. No, I think it was 28.
It's 28-7 and a half. I think it was 21 nothing at
Yeah.
no, yeah, it would have been 28 nothing at one point.
Yep. And so Packers rally all the way from behind to make it close. Ultimately, end up losing that game by 2. The Vikings are riding a 8-game winning streak coming into this week, and I have the longest winning streak in the NFL. The 2 losses they have came in week 7 and 8 when they lost to the Lions 31-29 at home, and then lost to the Rams 30-20. But beyond that, they have been pretty darn good this season. This game, in large part, is pretty big for both teams. If the Packers win, it gives them an opportunity to go into Week 18 against the Bears and secure the 5th seed in the playoffs. If they lose, the Vikings still have a chance at being the number 1 seed. If they go to, I think, to Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yes.
beat the Lions to end their season in what would be, I think, the Vikings winning out would be giving them, I think, the 1 seed if everything goes their way with Philadelphia as well. So a lot to play for this game for both teams. Packers would obviously like to play the NFC South team, I'd imagine, mostly for the fact that they're worst teams, obviously. But uh, I mean, the Vikings need this game too if they want to keep their chance at winning the division and being the number one seed alive. So I think it's going to be a pretty awesome matchup coming into Sunday. But before we get there, let's go over the injury report to see who's going to be playing, who's not. Recording this on Friday, so we have all the designations for everybody. Uh, Jair Alexander, full participant on Wednesday. Well, would have practiced, it seems, because they didn't practice on Wednesday. It's just an estimation. And then a limited participant on Thursday, and then a DMP on Friday to rule him as out. That is not ideal, not
Yeah.
ideal whatsoever. And so, no Jair. Corey Ballantyne was a full participant all through practice. He'll be playing. Javon Bullard is listed as questionable as he was limited all week. Um, Tackle Andre Dillard is out. He is with a concussion, the backup tackle. Tyron Hopper, I have honestly forgot he existed. Um, with an ankle injury, he is questionable after being limited on Thursday and Friday. Elton Jenkins was a DNP on Thursday, but he was limited with a knee injury on Friday. No designation for him. Tucker Kraft with a hip injury, who was limited on Wednesday and Thursday and a full participant on Friday, so he'll be playing. Luke Musgrave, coming back from his IR stint, was limited throughout practice this week and no designation for him. Quay Walker is once again out as he DMPs all week long, as is as is Evan Williams. He was a DMP all week with his quad injury, and then Christian Watson is questionable with a knee injury, the bruise he sustained. I believe is what Matt LaFleur said. DMP Thursday and Friday. For the Vikings, linebacker Blake Cashman was a full participant with his hip injury. He'll be playing this week. Fullback CJ Ham was a full participant with an ankle injury. He'll be playing. So it'll be Patrick Jones Jr., the outside linebacker. He has a knee injury. He practiced all week. Cornerback Fabian Moreau has a hip injury. He was a DNP. He is out for the game on Sunday. Um, Tight end Josh Oliver, their backup to TJ Hawkinson, has a wrist injury. He was a full participant all week. He'll be playing. Ivan Pace Jr., their linebacker, is coming back from his IR stint. He is questionable to play on Sunday.
Oh,
Yep. Jalen Redmond, their defensive lineman's concussion. He was a full participant on Friday. No designation for him. And Harrison Smith with a foot injury, full participant Thursday and Friday. No designation for him either. So I guess as we dive into this game now, I think the biggest thing that's come to head is that the Packers are once again without two of their most important players in their secondary in Jair Alexander and Evan Williams. Not great. Not great, Bob. Like we talked about in the previous previews of each of these last couple of games that maybe they're just holding Jair out to be healthy against the Vikings and Justin Jefferson and so on and so forth. But I haven't seen anything, but I'm genuinely curious how he went from assuming he'd be a full participant on Wednesday and being a full participant all of last week, if I'm not mistaken, to then being limited on Thursday to a DMP on Friday. I can't imagine that's a good update for Jair and his knee injury.
no, but this is the tricky part of trying to return from a ligament injury during the middle of the season. Um, Again, I think you're spot on of if it's that severe or you take that much of a step back, maybe there's something else impeding your recovery. Um, but really, the Packers have gotten used to playing without Jair. As much as he is a boon to wanting him to play and having him back for in time for the playoffs, like that might just be, a scenario that does not come to pass in a couple of weeks. Do we prepare for that? Of course. I think at this point, they're doing everything possible that Jair Alexander can play another down. But given the fact that this has just been a tricky and thorny knee issue for the better part of the year, and something that already forced him to leave the Bears game with just 10 snaps or whatever it was, it's like, yeah, like this is I saw a lot of it was a day. I can't remember what it might have even been Christmas. I saw a lot of people just being like up in arms about it or equivalent of it on online conversations. And obviously, yeah, it's we fixate on the whole like why are you doing this? Like why would you have him go out on the practice field if he's not that ready or if you're touting him as like he's nearing the return? And it's like these things are fluid. That's what it is. It's football. Like, especially when it's again a very we don't think of it as like an ACL or LCL, but a PCL injury where I'm not a doctor, but if it's hurting at all and you can't do the same movements that you want, or your stability in your knee, more importantly, is hampered by the current condition of it, play more football on it or doing simple like turning your hips, the kind of movements that make Jair Alexander a good cornerback. If you can't do those things, that is why things get downgraded pretty fast. It's simple. Like I don't. We've been through this so many times, especially like during the Bakhtiari thing of like there's just there are things that are just so fickle that we fixate on one or two individual elements without like looking at the bigger picture of like guy is hurt trying to come back to play no matter what if he's even if he's playing at less than 100% and it's at a very tricky spot of in his body. So yeah, like not to just pour cold water on just like kind of always just being like why are you doing this? Like I don't think this is I don't think it's bad for the Packers and the medical staff to kind of oversee Jair trying to get back, but they also know when to shut him down if things aren't responding the way that they should.
Right. And your comparison to Bakhtiari, I think, is pretty spot on. Like I don't think they're going to get him back sooner than they want to make sure that the was it the Bears game that he went out for 10 snaps and then got hurted again. They're
Yep.
probably just trying to limit to make sure that doesn't happen again. Like they've locked up their playoff spot. They don't need to have him play, obviously, but I think going from not playing for what 7 weeks now, Chicago,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll probably be 9 for just about half the season to then jumping into guarding if we're dreamcasting or wishcasting like Mike Evans. That's not going to be an easy task for him, right?
Mike Evans or it
Or
either if
Cooper
it's the
Cup or
Rams,
Puka Nakua.
Cooper Cup. Yeah.
Like those are talented wide receivers. That's a lot to ask for a guy fresh off an injury who hasn't played in 2.5 months. And so, yeah, his health is the most important thing, like to begin with, no matter what. Obviously, excuse me, but it makes it a little tenuous when that's the sort of situation that you're put in as a Packer fan, and just the Packers in general, when you don't know when he's going to be back. Because I mean, Matt LaFleur said it in the press conference this week that he's probably not any closer to playing this week than he was last week against the Saints. And when there's no progress like that, that's where you start to worry a little bit. Ultimately, he probably gets this fixed in the offseason with some sort of surgery, and he should be fine for next year. But to your point, there's been a lot of games without Jair Alexander than there's been with Jair Alexander the last couple of years. And
Since signing his contract extension specifically.
right, and that's not those two things aren't correlated, but it's it's definitely
It's not nothing either.
well, no, I don't think it's. I wouldn't go as far to say it's nefarious like that. Like
No, no, no,
he
no,
has
no,
his
no. I'm
contract
not.
and whatnot already. I doubt he wants to be out there. That's what I'm
Oh
saying.
yeah, yeah. He's a football player. He wants to be out there. But I also think part of the fury around the discussion,
Oh yeah, I see what you're
if I
saying.
could call it that, is because he's one of the highest paid players on the team.
Yeah,
So when he's playing whatever number equivalent of half the games that they play when he's since making this big time money, it's why
right.
he I can see why he's a divisive Packer because I
Oh,
certainly feel
always.
those feelings too.
Me too.
So I think that just adds more to just how kind of muddy the discussion it becomes when It's not, we're not when we're talking about Jair Alexander missing his seventh straight game. It's not. It's loaded with the fact that since signing that big contract, he's played half the games,
Yep.
and that is contextual for why you know people are livid, I guess, about the whole do they shut him down or what is the current status of his rehabilitation?
Right. No, totally, totally agree. But I mean, with him being out, it's where the Packers are going to be reliant on guys to start stepping it up. And one of the guys that I've been, I mean, pleasantly surprised by the last couple of weeks is Eric Stokes. Eric Stokes has played pretty darn well his last month or so since the Miami game. Uh, his grades on PFF are pretty good since then. He's allowed since the Miami game, like including the Miami game, six catches for I can't do math quickly in my head. 22 yards. Like that's pretty darn good for Eric Stokes.
Mhm.
Like to for context, against the Rams in week 5, whenever that was, or
Oh
the
God, that
Rams,
game.
he was targeted 10 times for 7 catches and gave up 65 yards and a touchdown. And so he then went on to be not playing that much, obviously. He played 17 or I'm sorry, 55 snaps against LA and then 16-7. He played a good healthy portion against Jacksonville, Detroit. Only 4 snaps against the Bears, who that's the game Jair went on. He still couldn't get snaps. But
Mhm.
then since then, 26, 36, 42, 59, and 35 snaps for him. All of which, or most of which, were in coverage. And so I think he's playing well. And we talked about this in the Discord, which you can find at gspn.info in the about section to join. But uh, the the next, what is it now, 6 games for Eric Stokes are arguably the most important 6 games he's ever played his entire career, like his entire football career. How he plays against the Vikings and the Bears, and however far the Packers go in the playoffs, maximum of 6 games. That'll color how Eric Stokes's the rest of his career goes. If he plays lockdown corner for the next 6 weeks, good chance he probably gets a second contract somewhere, and a good one at that. The problem is that if he doesn't, he'll probably get some small contract with not a lot of guaranteed money and things like that, and who knows where his career goes from there. Like we all know that he's lost his speed since his injuries, and if he can be a cover corner that doesn't have to be reliant on his speed like he was to start his career, that would be big for him. And I think
Yeah,
honestly, this will be a huge week for Eric Stokes. He's got 2 talented wide receivers, and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to cover this week. And if he can stick with them to make sure they don't have huge games, like those guys are gonna get theirs no matter what. That's just how it's gonna be. If he can do his part to make sure it's good, by all means, like that's a good thing. For context, against the Vikings in Week 4, Eric Stokes was targeted 7 times, had allowed 5 receptions for 94 yards, no touchdown, but regardless. So I would imagine they'll probably go right back at Eric Stokes and see if they can just pick on him all day, and we'll have to see how he responds.
I would agree. I think there has been an uptick. You mentioned just his string of performances, but even like could have probably made a case that he could have been a cheese candidate. He had an 80.6 PFF
Mm-hmm.
grade, one catch on three targets. Granted the Saints leading receiver, Monday night was, let's see,
It's
Foster Moreau.
yeah, former shut up eating cancer. Good for Foster Moreau.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him. But yeah, it wasn't. Let's just say the supporting cast around the States is a lot different than what it is in Minnesota, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I think it's just a tough he until he proves it. Eric Stokes is going to see a lot of targets thrown his way, and it's kind of the MO when you're a cover corner, And if other opposing teams think that they can pick on you and take advantage of your matchups and put their best wide receiver on you or get you moving in different ways, kind of overpower you, like that is I'm forgetting what touchdown it was. It might have been that Rams game I thought where he just got flat out bullied
Yeah,
by probably Puka Nakua in that one.
I believe it was.
Um, this I yeah, I totally agree with you. I think these next four games don't just affect his long-term future and
Hey,
his
whoa,
ability.
6, Jordan, 6.
Did I say four?
You did say 4.
Why did I say that?
I don't know, but we gotta have a discussion off pod about our expectations, Jordan.
Well, I meant um
The 4 playoff games, not the last 2 regular season games, of course. I got you.
yes, of course. Two, I meant next four after.
The regular season ends. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Jesus. Um, that was a Freudian slip. Um, what was my point?
Eric Stokes in these next couple of games.
Yeah, he's got a big pressure on his shoulders.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on his shoulders. I mean, him and Carrington Valentine, like same thing. They got to just be help locked down, and hopefully Zane Anderson can replicate his performance against the Vikings as he did. Replicate his performance against the Vikings like he did against the Saints. It'll be a tall task for him. Like Sam Darnold is playing a lot better than obviously Spencer Rattler is this year, and the level of talent that just comes out of the Vikings this again like this week is nowhere near who they were facing last week against the Saints, and so
Yeah,
it'll be big. We'll see energy for this game and how he responds. But like this defense has got it, dude. They've been getting home to teams a lot more. They're getting a lot of sacks. Like the Packers are. Packers are. If I can do a quick math count, are sixth in the league in total sacks, only trailing Baltimore, Denver, Houston, Dallas, and Minnesota. And notably, the Texans and Baltimore already have played their Week 17 matchup. But the Vikings have 44 sacks. The Packers have 43. Like this front is getting home more often than not lately, which is very good. And so, if you can get in there and make Sam Darnold's life a bit hellish to before he's able to get the ball out, that'll ease up a lot of pressure on the secondary, which I think is going to be needed this game. And so I know the Packers don't like blitzing a whole lot. They in fact are I think darn near the bottom of the league in blitz percentage. They're third worst in the league in blitz. I should say worst, but they're third to last in league in blitz percentage at 17.4%. The Vikings, on the other hand, 37.5% is how often they're blitzing. And so
yeah,
two vastly different defenses getting like I won't say vastly different results, but pretty similar results in that they just are getting home the same amount. But if you're the Packers, you have to be blitzing more on defense. I think specifically this week just to hide those blemishes in the secondary because there's going to be a lot open over the middle. I think just like there is every time we play the Vikings. Justin Jefferson is a master at finding the soft spot in the coverage and just catching the ball over the middle for 15, 20 yards. And so I am hoping I'll say that to see Jeff Halfley dial up a few more blitzes this week than he has in previous weeks.
should note here that Sam Darnold ranks 30th out of 34 in terms of QB blitz percentage.
He
Um,
gets blitzed the fourth least or the fourth most.
fifth fewest, fifth
Fifth view.
fewest.
Got it.
And Jordan Love is obviously on the opposite of the spectrum. He was at one point leading the league when they were blitzing him a ton, especially with his injury. Now he's fourth highest, or faces the fourth highest amount of blitz percentage, blitz rushes, whatever you want to call it. No, I think it's interesting how stylistically I think there are definite differences in how Minnesota approaches things versus how the Packers do under Jeff Halfley, but they're still very disruptive. They're more alike than they are dissimilar, I would say. Um, and yeah, this is always going to be the big test. This is obviously Minnesota is the most aggressive, havoc-wreaking defense by design. They've gotten under Jordan Love's skin. Week 4 was really testing how well he was moving around. Bad decisions were made, in part because of bouncing interceptions and like things that just didn't have to do with anything. But like
Dante Wicks' hands not working is a really good
Dontayvion
reason.
Wicks' hands, Harrison Smith getting or
Blitzing off the edge
pressure
with no.
untouched. Yeah, like there are things that made it way worse for Jordan Love that day. But I think this is also a good test to he's on the other side of that spectrum, looking more poised and confident than ever. Coming off a game where he didn't really take a lot of risks. He was playing a very, I would say, game control, kept to the game control game plan, whatever you want to call it. Um, I think despite this game not having like it has stakes, but it's not like win and you're in and you're booting out the Vikings or you're booting out the Packers out of the playoff race. But it also gives both teams a big tune up ahead of the playoffs. Like they're not right now going to face each other in the first round, but to have to play against each other,
To be clear, they can't face each other in the first round.
they can't. But could they eventually? We don't know.
Good.
I think it's just a good test to have for Jordan Love specifically facing against this defense. And as you mentioned, flip it around. Let's start to make Sam Darnold see ghosts.
Yeah,
Did
that'd
it
be nice.
before a long time ago, back in the land of the Big Apple with the Jets. Um, yeah, I want to be the team that proves that Sam Darnold is not who we think he is. He's back to what he always was.
I don't know if he'll get there this week. Like I think he's had plenty of run this year to prove that how he's playing just might be how he plays in a Kevin O'Connell scheme and system because Kevin O'Connell is a good coach and he has just this ability to do these things. And so I would hope yeah, I'm with you. I hope that the Packers make Sam Darnold look like old Sam Darnold, but I don't think this like flips a switch for them that he's just back to being the Jets quarterback of yesteryear. I think he'll just in general will be if he looks bad this game, it's because they pressured him and they're blitzing more often, and maybe he's just not making all the throws that he had throughout the season thus far. But no, I mean I'm with you, but I think it's gonna be tough to slow down this offense. Like I said, at any point during this season, nonetheless at home in a game that really matters for them and how their season goes, but also in general just facing the Packers because as we know, the entire NFC North gets up for Packers games these last couple of years because they've been good, and so
Yeah,
it's fun. Don't get me wrong, I like this. It's just I don't think it's gonna be an easy situation to play in on Sunday.
no, I think that much is clear.
So, all right, let's flip sides of the ball. Look at the Packers offense and a little bit of this Vikings defense. It's gonna be, I think, a tough game. Christian Watson being questionable doesn't help things at all, obviously. But the the Vikings love playing zone coverages, and if there's anything that the Packers have, it's that they have good route runners on this team.
Yeah,
And so if they have their full gamut of receivers to go with Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, and Tucker Kraft, I think they'll have success if they can just I don't want to make this team into like a dink and dunk offense, but just like running short curls and short slants towards the sideline to to really make sure that they're putting pressure on the Vikings to play man. Like go ahead and find the soft spots in the zone and make him pay for it, and then just like switch to man or switch to like hopefully they switch to man and you can beat him that way because this defense. I'm not gonna say like they're old in like a derogatory way, but they kind of are. They're not really built to play hard nosed, tough man coverage against bigger
Tough
receivers.
man.
Well, they're just not. They're smart and savvy receiver or cornerbacks that like to pick their spots, and they know how to play well in the scheme that Brian Flores has instituted. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, again, credit to them, absolutely. But I think this is going to be a big week for the for the pass offense and Jordan Love and those receivers to sort of get it going because what you saw against the Saints, what I think is like a pretty, I don't want to say lazy, but it was a pretty low key game plan. Just run the ball. We can beat this team. We're not going to do anything really special besides like the Tucker Craft 4th and 1
Direct snap.
direct snap kind of thing. But I mean, other than that, like it wasn't. This isn't again. It's not derogatory, but it wasn't an inspired game plan from Matt LaFleur against the Saints because they didn't need it to be. Right? They just
Yeah.
needed to run the ball, put the ball in the end zone on the ground, waste time, get out of there for Christmas, and come away with a playoff berth. Against the Vikings, I think it's going to need to be a little more inspired. I think they're going to need to be a little more aggressive with how they call the game because, like I said, this Minnesota Vikings team can get home after the quarterback, and you're just going to need to make sure you're having the pressure put on the defense. And honestly, like I wouldn't mind seeing like half hurry up just to get them gassed early. Like if they win the toss, take the ball and go and score. Like I think that would be the best thing to do. Again, super high level analysis, but it'd be nice to have a nice long drive to start this game to get their defense on their heels, have some momentum, go to the defense, the Packers defense, shut them down, do the same thing. That's the best way to start a game. Obviously, again, this is high level analysis, but in a game that is so impassioned and emotional like this one's going to be, I just think that's the best way to have a chance at winning this game. I think they can win this game. I just think if they come out on their first offensive series either tied or 3-0 or coming off of a like if they come out down 0-7, the crowd's going to be raucous as opposed
Yeah.
to 0-0 or 0-3 or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something that would be very interesting to watch depending on how this game starts. Because really over the last few weeks, the the Packers where they've, scored 5 straight weeks of 30 plus points or whatever, they've really honed in on the power running style headlined by Josh Jacobs. Now, if you remember, Josh Jacobs, and I verified this, he had the fewest touches that he had in a football game this year with the Packers was week 4 against the Vikings. It just is not a game that he finished with like 9 carries.
Yep.
Was it 9 carries, 51 yards, 4 catches on 6 targets for 27 receiving yards? Not a bad day, but like by and large, if you remember correctly, when the Packers are trying to make their comeback, Josh Jacobs by nature is not going to be a big focal point in trying to get him the ball or using the ground game to make up a 21 point deficit coming out of the halftime. Now, I do wonder if the Packers just keep leaning in on this kind of early grinding, let's get chunk running plays to start. Let's, what was it, 9 straight or 9 different. I don't think we'll see 9 different people get the ball like on a carry, but I do think that they want to play a very smash mouth style way, in part because whether we want to admit it or not, the Jordan Love factor of against this defense, maybe is Matt LaFleur going to lean in on trying to run the ball, like maintain a good run pass play balance in order to shield Jordan Love from facing pressure and a gauntlet where he's not going to have to throw for nearly 400 yards like he did against the Vikings in week 4. So, like always, just trying to find that balance. Obviously, it's going to be better achieved if a game is tighter and closer, or you're just doing what they were doing against the Saints. But I wonder how much of that plays a factor in what the game plan will be going in. And then once you get past like the scripted plays and the game kind of forms into itself, how does Matt LaFleur adjust? Because if this is a tight game, if both teams are going back and forth against each other, whether it's producing stops or it's producing scores, I think he the choose your own adventure style of like what he leans into more kind of shows how much faith that he has in this passing offense without Christian Watson going into a playoff like scenario.
No, I totally get what you're saying. Like, I think that the choose your own adventure thing is good, right? It's how does Matt LaFleur manage this game as it goes along? We know that he's not been very aggressive on fourth down. I think what it's like 2022 ish time. Like he used to be
Yes.
pretty aggressive on fourth down, always going for it in the Rodgers era with him. But now with Jordan Love, it seems like he's kind of has taken a step back in how aggressive he wants to be, and like very rarely do you see him go on it on fourth and two, fourth and one when they're inside their own are on their own side of the field essentially. And I think to win this game, they're gonna need to take a couple of those chances and go for it on fourth and two and fourth and one or fourth and five at some point if they need some momentum because it's just they have the players to do it. I struggle to wonder if they have the plays and like if they have the plays they want to go to. I think that might be part of the reason that they have such struggles with that is like I can't really tell you a play that they have that I'm confident in them running to get like 5 yards. Like every time, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they have short out routes from like slot receivers going to the sideline and stuff like that. But even then, one, that's a dangerous pass. Two, Jordan Love has short armed those throws a whole lot this season and has and Pat and last like did last year as well. So it's not his like best throw per se. And so I don't know what's limiting them from going for it more often, but they that has been the case. And so we just need them to be more aggressive and kind of just play this game like you got nothing to lose because they really don't. The worst they
Yep.
can be like the worst they can do is just be in the playoffs. And so of course they want to get to five and play a lesser team um, in the NFC South, but at the same time they're probably locked into the six as well, which means they'll get the Rams or the Seahawks. Which, lol, if they get the Seahawks, if the Rams lose this week against the Cardinals, I believe, and then they face off Week 18 for the division. Boy, how would that be hilarious if the Packers have
That'd
to
be
play that
crazy.
because the Seahawks just beat the Bears 6-3 in Chicago. Like that's not a good team, and we've already
No.
seen that, and the Packers have beaten them in Seattle. So be more confident doing that. And then, yeah, the Packers beat the Rams in LA. So I'm confident in the first round regardless, but I think it's indicative of like this next month what it should look like. Like the Packers this Sunday should be clicking on all not clicking on all cylinders, but they just should be clicking in general and flying high. The analogies right now are not going well. The engine should
Uh,
be moving is what I'm trying to say. And so with that, if they can put up a good game against this Vikings defense, honestly, I don't even care if they win. Like obviously you want them to win to get that feather in their cap to prove they can. But same thing with the week 4 game. If they can play four halves of good football against the Vikings instead of the two halves like they did the first time they played, they'll be they'll be clear. They'll be just fine.
Four halves make a full halfly.
Sure.
The Rams play the Cardinals Saturday night for the NFL's triple header because
Ugh.
more random football on random days is not enough.
To the NFL's fairness, they have been doing Saturday for like a decade and a half now.
I understand, but it's coming out the heels of
The bad Christmas games.
Christmas,
Yeah.
bad Christmas games, Thursday night football, 6-3, or is that a baseball score?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, come on,
Side
come on.
note, did you watch the game last night?
I did not.
Oh
I have
boy,
respect for
was it
myself.
bad. The I tuned in for like the last like 5 minutes. Uh, if you can imagine, the
Did
the
Geno Smith play for the Seahawks?
yep,
Oh,
Geno Smith did play. Uh the last few minutes, the last drive for the Bears, they're down 6-3 with like 2.5 minutes to go ish. They go. It's like it's third or fourth down. Well, it's third down. They don't get it. It's fourth down. Um, the third down was an incompletion, so the clock is stopped at like 2:30, I believe, if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken. Uh, Punting team comes out
Mm.
down. They have all their timeouts. Punting team comes out down 6-3. The they're going shot or not shot. The play clock is running down before it like gets to zero at like 10 seconds. I forget, is it Thomas Brown? Is that his name?
Yes.
Thomas Brown calls timeout.
Timeout, Tom.
Yeah, for whatever reason. And so then it's like fourth and one, fourth and inches kind of thing. I think it was fourth and inches. They end up like they're like 35. End up sending the offense back out to go for it.
Mm.
False start. Go back to fourth and five. They still go for it and get it. 2 minute warning. And then two horrendously used timeouts. It was the arguably like a worse management of the end of the game than Eberflus had against the Lions on Thanksgiving. It,
Interesting.
you'll have to watch like the last little bit of it. It
The
was
last two
really
minutes.
bad. Sorry for
Mm.
that. Sorry for that little tangent. It was just crazy bad.
Anytime to show how bad the
The
Bears
Bears
are,
are
and
is always a welcome thing.
yeah,
But the last thing before we do some predictions, the running backs obviously Jordan. Aaron Jones having a good year. He's at 1,046 yards and 5 touchdowns on 233 carries. Another one of the backs that gets, I think, forgotten. I also think it's just a little different situation. But the running backs changing sceneries and having like just again really good years. Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, and Josh Jacobs are atop that list. I mean, but Aaron Jones too. Like, not that he was having bad years with the Packers, but change of scenery and just is valued and is still as good as he was in previous years. He just turned 30 earlier last month, and so still had some stuff off the tank, and good on him for doing it. And I think running backs are going to be pretty critical in this game. Like, can the Packers keep Aaron Jones from having another good game against them? And can this run defense really have a similar showing as to how they've been doing so well against a running back like Aaron Jones? Like, this is probably the best running back they've had in golly.
Adrian Peterson.
No, I'm talking about the Packers' opponent this season.
Oh, yeah.
So like,
I would also say Adrian Peterson for the Vikings.
but yes, no, that 1 year Dalvin Cook was pretty good.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Delvin Cook. Yeah.
Um, the Detroit game when they had David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs, obviously, but then since Christian McCaffrey, and I think he left halfway through, and then before that, Houston with Mixon is probably as far back as you're going. Like, they held Devon Achane and company to some pretty good or some pretty like mediocre stats.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just they haven't faced the quality running back they were facing in the beginning of the year when they faced Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor
Kyron Williams.
and Kyron Williams and James Conner a little bit for Arizona. And so we'll see how they can do against Aaron Jones. That'll be a big thing for them because he is the type of running back that typically gives the Packers problems. And with no Quay Walker, it'll be difficult. I shouldn't say difficult. It'll be a challenge for the linebacking uh, room to keep him at like within their I can't even think within within their grasp essentially. He likes to bounce outside. He likes to run the big routes along the sideline. And so if Edgerrin Cooper can get horizontal with them and keep them to 1 or 2 yard gains on those pitch outs, I think that works out quite well for them.
Just a fun fact because we will celebrate Aaron Jones even when he's wearing purple and gold or yellow, purple and yellow. Uh, he has 9,410 yards from scrimmage, which is
In his
just
career.
insane. Um, yeah, because like he's gonna get over 7,000 yards this game,
Yeah.
rushing yards, and obviously we know how good of a dual threat back he is as a receiver. Just kind of just shows to the longevity that he's had that he's already in the mix for something like that. But depending on where he plays next year, whether it's Minnesota or somewhere else, he's gonna pass that milestone. So that's good for him. But yeah, like he is that perfect profile of dual threat running back that can catch passes well and be used as a route runner and also bounce it to the outside and kind of get if the D line just gets swallowed up by the Vikings offensive lines, running lanes, the blocking gaps that they're going to provide for him, it's going to be a lot. You're putting a lot on Edgerrin Cooper, who seemingly can handle a lot, but it's still a lot to ask of like the second or third line defenders for this Packers defense.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Packers Vikings, two of the better teams in the league against the rush. Vikings leveled up the second least amount of yards in the NFL this year. Uh, I would actually argue. Oh no, yeah, second least. 1306 behind Baltimore's 1305, and Baltimore's already played an extra game, which is crazy. Um, Only 7 touchdowns allowed on the ground for the Vikings. On average, yard per attempt is 3.9. So it would be again, a lot of that doesn't include a Josh Jacobs game because they were down so much they had to throw the ball a whole lot. But getting him going early against this team is going to be, again, critically important because the more often they can run the ball and have they go to play action, the better they are. Like this, the Packers are better when Josh Jacobs is going, obviously, but Jordan Love is better when he's able to play out of play action versus just uh, generally in shotgun.
Yep.
So, all right, Jordan, players to watch. Who you looking to watch this week?
Um, it's hard not to just go to the Vikings and look at their star weapons. I will actually go to Jordan Addison, who it has felt like he's come on really late. Um, Obviously has had some off the field issues that kind of hampered his start to the season, but he's still a very very effective weapon as especially deep field weapon that stretches your defenses very well. Um, him and Sam Darnold, he has 8 touchdowns to go with 806 receiving yards, 14.4 yards per reception. Um, yeah, I just think you know, this is a game that could really test are they going to be throwing to Xavier McKinney? Maybe this is kind of, maybe I'll save what I was going to save depending on who my Packer to watch it will be. But I think having that target that stretches the field as much as Jordan Addison does, I mean, that's to the secondary that they have with Javon Bullard coming back with the outside corners of Carrington Valentine, Eric Stokes. There's just going to be a lot of pressure put on that line of defense for a variety of reasons because Justin Jefferson just commands so much attention that if you throw over the top to Jordan Addison, it's like that could be 6 points at a moment's notice. So yeah, I think the way that the Vikings play and diagram, like their play designs by Kevin O'Connell, like they'll try to find the gaps and how to really exploit this defense, which certainly is possible.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good pick, obviously. I'm torn for my Viking. I genuinely don't know where to go because on the one hand, I want to pick a guy on offense like TJ Hawkinson, who we didn't really talk about much this episode, but a guy coming back from his horrific injury last year against the Lions, and is kind of slowly making his way back. He hasn't really been his old self as of late. He hasn't really been the primary target for Sam Darnold. That's been reserved for just Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. And so part of me wonders what his role could be against a team like the Packers, who had historically just don't have a good time covering tight ends. Like we saw this against with Sam Laporta in previous years, and this year a little bit. We saw this with oh, what's his name in Jacksonville, Evan Ingram, and he had the day he had, and so in general, like I just worry about T.J. Hawkinson, but then at the same time, like on defense, you think about guys like Blake Cashman, who are just having pretty good years for them, or a pretty good year for them. Andrew Van Ginkel, obviously, who is like getting
Yep.
like quiet like defensive MVP votes early in the year. Jonathan Grenard, those two lead them in sacks. We talked about Ivan Pace Jr. maybe coming back, and so I think in the end, I'm gonna go with Jonathan Grenard. 10 sacks on the season. If he can be disruptive, it's gonna be a problem for the Packers and this offensive line and getting the run game going. And so they need to keep this defense in check. And I think with that pairing, I'm gonna go to Jordan Love also. Just need like a great game from him. Honestly, we need like him to be like accurate, efficient, and smart with the ball this week. He's still, if you remember earlier in the season, Jordan, when he had all those interceptions, a lot of them, don't say a lot of them, some of them weren't his fault, right? They were going off of receivers' hands and just into cornerbacks' hands for interceptions. I think
Yeah.
we've swung all the way back to the other side, and that he's throwing some pretty bad balls that aren't getting intercepted. The Tucker
Mm.
Craft prayer against the Saints should not have been thrown. It gets the first down, but that's a pretty bad throw contextually. Uh, the he had another one. Oh, he had one dropped that he tried to dump
The
off.
Saints one.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. He's still against the Saints. That the lineman, defensive lineman, just flat out dropped. I think there was another one that was tipped up in the air and dropped. Like I think we are experiencing a run of good luck for these Packers or for these Jordan Love throws that aren't being interceptions. And ideally, I just would rather him not throw those balls, right? Jordan Love's like biggest plus right now as a quarterback is how often he doesn't take sacks. He's just not taking them, right? Earlier in the season and last year, the trade off was he was throwing a lot of interceptions. Well, I think the next step for him is just to be smarter with the ball before it gets to one of those two options, right? And so, like, just throw it away or throw it at somebody's feet, etc. Or get better at stepping up in the pocket and escaping the pressure. I think
Yep.
you'll have ample opportunity to do that this week because they're going to come after you, Jordan Love, this week. And how you negotiate these blitzes, I think, is going to be the story of the game.
Can't can't agree more with that because my player to watch for the Packers is going to be Josh Jacobs. I think I mean, I hit on it before. It's like the game that he played against the Vikings was his least prominent game, I would say, in a lot of ways, based on just how that game unfolded. It's hard to use your running back as a feature weapon when you're down as much as the Packers were down for a large portion of that game. I think if the Packers do win this game, it's going to come down to what a surprise, someone like Josh Jacobs who gets through a really tough as nails defense that knows how to stop the run, that is so well balanced on both sides of, not just both sides of the ball, but how they defend both run and pass. I just think Josh Jacobs is the key to how the offense this year has worked. And if he doesn't have it going, or if he gets slowed down by an injury or whatever, like it just throws a lot more curveballs the Packers' way, especially if you're going to lean more on Jordan Love. That opens up more opportunities for risks and prayer balls and interception opportunities that, as you mentioned, have not fallen towards the opponent's way. But I think Josh Jacobs, again, he's so good. And it could be the key to this game being played the Packers way, or if the Vikings have success in slowing him down, it could be the key to them playing their way.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think you put it perfectly. He is the engine that drives the offense, and if he has another game where it's 9 carries and a few amount of yards, it's not going to be great. So, all right, predictions for the score predictions. I'm gonna go 27-26 Packers.
Hmm.
Yeah.
30-23 Packers.
All right. Love that. Absolutely love that. So, all right, folks. Thanks for listening to the episode Talk of the Tundra. We'll be back with you Sunday night or Monday morning. Don't know yet when we'll be recording that one. So, but keep your eyes peeled for those notifications. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to GSPN's premium Substack page at gspn.info. $8 a month to get all of the After Dark pods, all of your Eurostep pods, your GSPN pods, I should say, without ads in them, including this one. Obviously, those go right into your Spotify or your RSS feed wherever you may be listening. Go do that. $8 a month just to support us. We'd appreciate that. The After Dark last week was very fun with winter activities. I haven't got a chance to listen to this week's yet, which was power ranking Christmas movies, which is what I wanted to be on. Couldn't, unfortunately. I saw that Home Alone is the thumbnail for it, though, so it's hopefully that was pick 1-1. Jordan, we got that pod. Was it 1-1?
Um, you'll have to find out to when it was picked.
Wow. I'm nervous about that one then.
I had the first overall pick. That's all I'll say.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, but yo, check out all the GSPN pods. Eurostep as the Bucks keep their momentum moving forward without Chris and Dame, who are apparently very, very sick. Uh, all things Brewers over at Cruising for a Bruising. Uh, all things Juncture Pod, movies, TV, pop culture, stuff like that. Make time for this. So subscribe to all of those. Thank you for listening. Tune in on Sunday or Monday, whatever it shall be. We'd appreciate it. Jordan, thank you.
Thank you.